The Rave by J.R. Tross. 1. Their fingers like fishhooks, the pair of boys trawled the depths of the dumpster outside of the Silver Spoon pawn shop in the city of trucked nation of L. They were alone on the streets of their midnight playground, up to their elbows in orange rinds and plastic bottles. Then, the older of the two, 12 as of last week, held aloft his prize, a scuffed-up and discolored Robo-Dog's hassle-free companion Mark IV. Nice! From before they added holograms! What, so it always looks the same? That's dumb, said the younger boy, 10. You don't want it? Guess it's mine then. Even if it was too busted to be his toy pet, he might be able to sell it for scrap at a junkyard. There's no way that battery still works. Shut it. Is that the remote? Give it here, Powal. I want to see. It's mine, Tomik. I found it. What are you going to do with the dead remote, huh? Tomik's quick hand latched onto the plastic controller. All the windows overlooking the street corner were dark and bolted shut, so the boys' antics, as far as they knew, went unnoticed, though their grunts echoed up and down the way as they wrestled over the ownership of the item. A rat scurried out of their path, hiding beneath one of the many nearby rusting, bald-tired cars. Powal stopped struggling. Tomik frowned at the man. I knew you'd surrender. I saw something just now, said Powal. He pointed. In the window. There. Suspecting a trick, Tomik clutched close his new possession as he traced his friend's grubby-fingered gesture to the front door of the Silver Spoon. Something moved, fast, like it dived away when it caught me looking at it, said Paul, and he grinned. Maybe it's a ghost. Tomik stared at him. The broken Robo-Dog's model fell onto the sidewalk between them, with a clack-clack. Paul said, You want to go find it? Who? Me? You're the one who saw whatever it was. What? You scared, Tomik? Not on your life, The door to the pawn shop creaked, gliding open. Tomik tensed. Paul chuckled and slapped his friend's arm. This is amazing. We have to go in. Tomik took a step back. I don't know about this. Come on. Tell me that this isn't the most interesting thing that's happened in, forever. Let's just take a quick peek, in and out. The shop's ratty awning flapped lazily with a sudden gust of autumn wind. The little bell hanging from the door handle tinkled. You first, said Tomik. It was my idea. Do I have to do everything myself? Pressing his clammy palms and his nose against the window, Tomik's breath fogged the glass. He couldn't see anything inside. Total darkness. Fine. We'll go together. Fair? Fair. They spat into each other's hands and shook on it. Voices cracking, they counted down. 1, 2, 3. And they darted forward across the threshold and into the dark of the shop. For a few moments, the only sounds the boys could hear were their own shallow breaths. The faint bit of a street lamp light that entered the building only extended as far as their toes. In front of their noses, the shadows were heavy, the air as thick as a sheet of obsidian. Finding the place completely empty, they looked at each other, ready to laugh in triumph over their fears, laugh in relief that there had been nothing to fear in the first place. The door slammed shut behind them. Hey, that's not funny. I didn't do that. You did. A creaking of floorboards made them turn on their heel, and they watched, knees locked, jaws clenched, and eyes wide, as a tall man-shaped shadow sloughed off the wall and lurched toward them. Its arms angled, bent at an unnatural angle. The figure jerked and spun its snapped limbs as it approached. Its feet never once touched the ground, nor could its face be seen in the gloom. It stood over the boys now, and the only details they could make out were the whites of its eyes and the blood on its teeth. They opened their mouths to scream. Responding to a call about a noise complaint, deputies Sashka and Zej sped toward the scene of the disturbance. Their squad car's built-in virtual intelligence continuously flashed the codes of vandalism and breaking and entering, noting that the suspects had been described as delinquent teens by witnesses who'd made the call from 15 minutes prior. Here we go again. Some teenagers break a window and another busybody is woken up from her much-needed beauty sleep, said Zej through a yawn. Oh no, call the mayor. Schedule an emergency meeting with the Viceroy. A particularly juicy bug splattered against the windshield. Soscow shook his head and gripped the steering column a little more tightly, trying to wake up both his hands and himself. He could have easily flipped on the autopilot switch, but he didn't want to drift off before he got there. He needed to focus, stay alert. One more misstep on the job, and he could kiss his credentials goodbye. I'm sure this isn't a burglary, just kids being kids, he said. I'd be willing to slap a 10 down on it. Oh, sure. I mean, what else is there for our energetic youth to do in this town? Besides, break a bunch of stuff that isn't theirs. It's not like I don't have any sympathy for them, but all I'd wish is that they'd occasionally take a week off. Zej rolled his shoulders. His neck cracked loudly. You're probably right, Sass, but I'll take that bet anyway. Maybe add a sliver of excitement to this shift. At least if I get popped by some trigger-glad misky, I'll earn 10 gelders for my pains. Don't think you have to worry about that, what with Ura and their gang getting picked up by the Central 2 days ago. Really? First I'm hearing of it. So, Ura finally became someone else's problem? It's shaping up to be a good night. Here's hoping it stays quiet. Soscow cracked his knuckles. A minute or two later he said, There it is. Pulling the car alongside the curb, leaving the violet emergency lights flashing, he popped open the door and got out. He poked his head back in for one more swig of lukewarm coffee from his thermos, and then gestured for Zej to take point. The other deputy drew his service weapon, and the two approached the front door of the Silver Spoon. The beam of his flashlight showing him nothing but empty shop, Soscow rapped the window with the back of his hand. Truck Sheriff's Department. We know you're in there, you little sneaks. Come out, kiddos, said Zej, and the worst that you can expect is a slap on the wrist. Don't make us come in there. They waited. No answer. Zej grumbled. How shocking. Soscow reached for the handle, but the door opened, swinging inward, well before he touched it. There were no motion sensors that Zej could see. Okay, that's cute, he said, gripping his pistol more tightly. You've had your fun. Get out here, now. Silence. Zej entered first, his partner following closely behind, their flashlight beams sweeping the room. He nodded towards something on the ground, a boot. They got a little closer and noted that it was attached to a man, a very large and still one. When they caught sight of the man's face, they recoiled. The flesh had sagged inward to the point of looking like melted wax. No signs of anyone or anything else. Swallowing, Zej said, I'll be collecting on our bet later, partner. Is this... Doyen, the owner. Yeah, Soscow whispered. Can't tell if he's breathing. He checked for a pulse, pinching the unmoving man's wrist, and immediately jerked his hand back. What? His bones. Soscow was trembling now. They're... well, see for yourself. Zej shook his head, grabbing Dowen's meaty arm. He dropped it straight away. When the arm struck the floor, it sounded like a bag filled with shards of glass. They've been... The deputy's attention turned once more to Doyen, whose expression was strained and whose eyes had been closed. Should have been closed. Now the lids opened, and the eyes flicked to the right, looking with Zej's. The deputy screamed, springing to his feet, leaping toward the door. It slammed shut before him. From behind, Soscow shouted, Holy Plutonia! What is... And they watched as Doyen bolted upright, his head jiggling awkwardly, his every movement putting to mind a marionette on strings. He lifted off the ground, and each of his twists and spasms sounded like a bunching up of huge wads of printer paper. Zej! Soscow yelled. Clutching his pistol in a death grip, the other deputy grabbed the door's handle with his sweat-slicked free hand. It wouldn't turn. Locked. Zej kicked the door as the corpse of Doyen drifted closer and closer. Out of the way! Forehead drenched, Soscow aimed his weapon at the locking mechanism and fired 3 plasma rounds, punching 3 small, irregular shapes, orange-rimmed holes in the metal. He shouldered the door open, the force of his leap sending him rolling onto the sidewalk beyond. Zej vaulted after him, and within seconds, they were back inside the squad car. As Saskow jammed his thumb into the communicator switch, Zej grabbed his elbow and pointed at the silver spoon. The front door was shut again, and appeared entirely undamaged. The two deputies hurried through every gesture and sign they knew to ward off evil. Tremors running from the elbow to his jaw, Saskow put the speaker microphone to his lips. "Get the sheriff down here!" Gaze fixed on the pawnshop entrance, Zej barely registered Saskow's growl. "You had best wake him up then, Witta. We have Just get Lowing involved. Now!" In the driver's seat, Zej started the car and, slamming his foot down, backed the vehicle up. Its tires squealed, its engine backfired. After a few moments within the shops and apartments surrounding them, lights switched on. Curious and worried faces watched Zej park the car on the opposite side of the street, get out, dash over to the trunk, and retrieve a rifle. Leaning on the hood, his sights remained fixed on the front door, the silver spoon. He didn't dare blink. The electric streetlights, set on tall, rusted poles, finally flickered out as the early morning washed with inky gray light the narrow two-story brick and concrete shops and townhomes. Somewhere nearby, growling hungrily, a dog could be heard knocking over a metal trash can. 2 hours, 4 deputies, and a dozen cups of coffee later, and the silver spoon had been thoroughly cordoned off. The deputies busily walked the perimeter, warning away the bolder of the onlookers who had, by now, formed a small crowd on the sidewalk across the street from the pawn shop. Sheriff Lowing leaned through the open driver's side window of a vehicle and over the receiver listening. When City Councilman Kolch had finished screaming at him, he took the opportunity to interject. "Yes, sir, I understand." The round face surrounding his mustache flushed. More colorful interruptions followed, peppered with a few explanations and several threats. "Cameras? Now? How much time?" "No, I have no idea how they found out about..." "Sir, all due respect, my men know better than to blab to the media." Yes, sir. Well, frankly, we're not equipped to contend with whatever this is. It's like something straight out of one of those old stories, and... Hello? Hello? He stared at the speaker for a few seconds. Hung up on me. That son of a... To Deputy Saskow, who stood at attention, he said, "Listen, I've just been informed that the news got its nose all in this. We've got maybe half an hour before the eyes of the whole nation are on us. It's about to get political. Sir? I hope you know that Zej and I would never..." Lowing looked at him from over his purpled, drooping eyelids. "What? Course. I know full well that you kept the lid on it. It's those triple I rats that we have to thank. They must have been listening in on our chatter. Or they've hacked our comms. Either way, don't much matter. The chuckleheads from the poor HQ are inbound. If we're going to avoid being made a fool of, live on the midday news, then we need to wrap this up as of 5 minutes ago." The sheriff faced the steadily growing crowd of gawkers, raising his voice. "All right, everyone, I'm going to need you all to take another good few healthy steps back." Someone in the crowd challenged him. "People heard gunshots a while ago, from inside the building. Have you arrested anyone?" "Is this a manhunt?" demanded someone else. "Why won't you just tell us what's happening?" Lowing rubbed a temple with his thumb and middle finger. "The noises that you heard must have been bursting pipes. What we're dealing with there is nothing more interesting than a gas leak. But that's why you've got to move back. There's a risk the building is going to blow up. What about the children?" Glaring at the cluster of faces, searching for those who'd spoken, Lowing said, "Children?" "Yes, Sheriff. My mother's the one who called in the office. She said that she saw 2 kids break into the building. Where are they?" The back of his neck, his chest, his armpits, nearly every bit of growing increasingly saturated with sweat. Lowing said, "There may or may not be 2 minors inside of the building. We are doing everything that we can, I assure you." "Everything that you can?" a woman said. "My son's been missing for hours. No one has a clue where he's gone, and you haven't done anything to find him. For all I know, he's in there right now, and you're sitting here on your thumbs, you useless..." "Ma'am, please. We have the best and brightest out there looking for your child. We take our job of protecting and serving the community with utmost gravity, I swear." Dabbing at his forehead with his pocket kerchief, he added, "We've called in the specialists. They'll be here any minute now." He stared hopefully down the length of the street toward the point where it curved into a tunnel. "I know this is particularly difficult for you, ma'am. Just let's give it another few minutes." Finally, a taxicab trundled up to the curb and jittered with one last backfire to a standstill. The front passenger door opened, and out stepped a lanky young woman in a frayed duster. With a bandage-covered arm, she waved the cabbie off. Her thumb flicked across the screen, and her phone, a bright blue bubble expanding from between her lips. 4 more chews, and she spat the gum into a little piece of paper, neatly folding and tucking it into her inner jacket pocket. This action revealed the bandolier strapped to her chest, its loops holding glass containers like soda bottles, each of which were filled with a different vibrantly colored liquid. Though her hair began to gray, her face revealed that she couldn't have been older than 19, and was probably even younger than that. Her long ponytail swished against the back of her duster as she walked up to the Silver Spoon's front door. There, she paused, fingers lingering above the handle for just a beat too long. She cast a glance over her shoulder at the milling public, the deputies, and the sheriff. Lowing shook his head. "See? There's our specialist now, right on time." Murmurs exploded through the crowd as the young woman opened the door and stepped into the darkness. Alone inside the Silver Spoon, Alina Kovich drew a long, halting breath. Dust dancing along its edges, a single gray shaft of sunlight was all that held the shadows at bay. Shadows that pressed against her like sweaty bodies in a packed subway car. During the entire cab ride from her home to this place, she had puzzled over a troublesome thought. Unlicensed and unproven as Alina was, Sheriff Lowing must have been truly desperate to have called on her. Now she understood why. Even outside the building, she had felt it, a shapeless terror seeping through the door. Inside, the feeling became overwhelming, like static-charged air, like the buzz of a battery acid on the tongue. There waited for her inside the pawn shop something old and cunning. No sign of the kids. There'd never been much hope for them. There was less now. Phone in hand, she borrowed the wireless Atherred signal from a nearby unprotected network named Get Your Own Connection, Petra. She checked the Fizzy Eye and Nema bars, real-time displays of her own vital and magical energies, and found both to be full. She didn't need an app to tell her how healthy she was feeling or how deep her magical reserves ran, but seeing the small font 100% status displays was reassuring, and jailbreaking her phone to be able to show those stats had taken a lot of effort, so checking the bars often made the whole ordeal feel like less of a waste of time. Once connected to the web, she pulled an Augie bottle from her bandolier and chucked the glowing amber potion, scowling as the bitter, viscous liquid went down. Pocketing the empty container in her pouch, waste not, she burped a fiery breath. Her focus exploded. And then there were 2 realities, the physical world and another one parallel to it. The second of the 2 was usually private, unseen by others, but today she needed to open the secret door. Fling it wide, reveal what lay inside. Called by many names, Mind World, Dream World, Ethereum, by many different people, this place, or non-place, existed within every sentient being. It almost always remained locked away behind the impenetrable vault doors that separated the individual from their own consciousness. Magic, however, could access it because Nema, magical energy, derived from the life's energy within every living thing. The potion that she'd just taken acted as an amplifier of all those energies, broadcasting the ebbs and flows of this inner sphere of her existence. The process did not have to be unpleasant, but it never failed to be intense. She steadied herself against an antique armoire, her thoughts scattering, recombining. After a few tumultuous moments which made her feel as though she'd just dived into the edge of a waterfall, she was able to sculpt the needed image in her head with perfect control. She saw in her mind's eye a slideshow of her fiercest thoughts and feelings. Thanks to the potion, she could now flip through these pictures and video clips at will. Casting aside the mind stuff she didn't want, she weaved the rainbow bursts of her own mental movies, focusing on the sights, sounds, tastes, scents, what she needed to feel in this moment, what she needed to feel in order to lure it out. snagging Mrassie's stuffed lion and running off as he cried, spending her grandfather's money on a box of firecrackers when he'd asked her to go buy eggs and milk, standing in front of the window display and praying for a pair of shiny water-walking sneakers on the mannequin's feet. She caught hold of the thread that she'd been looking for. It sounded heady and thick. It smelled red. Hopefully, she would be proven right about the nature of the creature, that it would be attracted to her desire for riches. If she turned out to be wrong, well, for her plan to have any chance of succeeding, she would have to heighten the intensity of her desires, make it drunk off her fantasies, make it careless. She thought of the drag races in Tinneby, of betting every penny to her name. She thought of what she'd do with all of that money, all the scores that she'd settle, all the expensive dinners she'd buy, the luxury. Sooner than she expected, she found that she wasn't in the pawn shop anymore, but outside it. She had been transported to the country, near a highway, a long, straight road, the place where the races were held each month. She knew it well. There, many times, she'd slapped down her hard-earned money, hoping for a chance at a better life. She had yet to win. Good news, the plan was working so far. Already the creature attempted to rope her in with its illusion. Crouched in the middle of the papery brittle brush and the nettle bushes, she focused on refining the shape of her desire. She imagined it, the rush of the air as the cars screamed past, the press of the other cheering spectators against her, the jingle of the coins in their pockets, the rustle of bills, the thought of how many times the moment of hope had soured. She remembered losing all her cash, and how she'd conjured dreams of stealing, cheating, begging, all that she could throw down just for a few more gelders. To squander everything on the thinnest of chances, to walk the blade's edge, thinking of only herself, her own gain, at the cost of everyone else's. There it was. She could feel it, watching her. Eyeless sight and shadowless dark, and hunger, so much hunger, like it had never once been satisfied, though it stuffed itself to bursting. Every target has its weakness. Her grandfather's words, strands, woven into the fabric of her thoughts. Knowing your prey is both the first step and the last. Well, the creature she now hunted certainly knew how to weave a powerful illusion. This was no ordinary demon. It had spun her web of fantasies into a vision so real-looking that she couldn't tell the difference between it and the pawn shop in which she must still be standing. This place certainly felt like and sounded real, even though it was all in her head. The silver spoon had faded like a dream touched by morning light. Whatever lay in wait for her would be the most dangerous enemy she'd ever faced. She'd have to remain on her guard at all times, or risk her soul. Fueled by her artificially enhanced and broadcast desires, something leaned in, a shadowy presence unseen, but clawing and sucking at the very air around her. A starving thing. It pawed and gulped, and Elina got the distinct impression of claws, tentacles too, teeth. When she licked her lips, her tongue lapped up dewdrops. As the moments wore away, eroded by the silent storms of desires swirling from her and around her, it took every effort to remember that she wasn't really in that place that she'd fixed in her imagination. Her one advantage, for now, was her prey's unawareness of her purpose. She concentrated, straining to not reveal her true motives, and threw back the hood of her tattered old coat. Well, she'd set a really solid trap. Now, to find out who it was for, her target or herself. Her breath fogged in front of her on the field of gray morning. She rose, took a step, the bluegrass crunching under the heel of her knee-high hiking boots. Delicious, said the voice then, caressing the syllables of her language like someone tasting a delicacy for the first time. Such craving. Hands at her hips, she cocked her head. She waited. A wisp of mist encircled her, wafted past her, joining with another, then another. After a few seconds, a figure began to take shape within the moisture. A lopsided grin, a corked eyebrow, a thin nose, slit-like nostrils. The sounds of dewdrops hovered there, revealing a ghostly outline of a man's body. Next, color flooded the figure. Porcelain white skin, gray three-piece suit, golden eyes. It adjusted its red tie with ring-heavy fingers, the platinum glowing palely, blending with tentacles of soft luminous mist. Who? It cleared its throat. The word had come out sharp, like a rusty nail jabbed into the ear canal. The creature had the decency to look embarrassed. Tugging at the knot of its tie again, it said, in a more human-sounding voice, "Who are you, my beauty, with your skin the hue of hazel fay, and eyes like purest olivine?" "I've been looking for you," said Elena. She mustn't let it know anything about her, not even her name. "Who I am is not important. We're here to talk about you." "Oh?" said the man. No, not a man, she reminded herself. An almost man, and barely even that. The apparition's features took a turn for the strange, elongating, warping. Its shadows no longer bore the same shape as it did. "You won't tell me your name, then? You first," she said, watching tentacles erupt from the shadow, then fade. "Tut, tut," the creature waggled a platinum-ringed finger. "Nice try. I see your games now. It seems that you have me at somewhat of a disadvantage." She nodded. The less she said aloud, the better. "And yet, by your caution, you unmask yourself, girl. You are an Aelfraver. Damn it." She glared at it. "The truth is revealed." A swirling, wriggling mass, its shadow stretched out, rearing up behind her. "It has been some several decades since I've tasted one of your kind. Tell me, how many of my people have you destroyed in your short career, young hunter?" Though she tried, she couldn't let the provocation go. "None," she grunted. "None!" It took a step forward. She, a step back. "I don't kill." It chuckled wetly. "Foolish." From the sheriff's descriptions, her guesses about this supposed ghost had been right on the money. But she didn't yet know how old or cunning her opponent truly was, so she'd have to play this game of questions a little longer. Even as she mentally ran through a list of relevant spells and counterspells, she nudged the conversation in a different direction. "You don't look exactly like Doyen." An interesting smile from the gold-eyed non-man. "Who?" "The owner of the shop. The one you killed. Your disguise, though. It's hardly perfect." The creature scoffed, spreading its fingers, pressing a palm to its chest, its expression a parody of innocence. "I didn't kill him. I'm like you. I do no harm. Intentionally." "Oh, you're telling me he twisted his own bones till they snapped? And what about those 2 kids? They asked for it?" "As you wish," the non-man shrugged. "All I say unto you is this. I did not kill them." "Then what did?" "Their desires." "That's ridiculous, and not how anything works. You seriously expect me to believe that you made them want stuff to death?" "Sweet girl." "This mask of bravado ill fits your inviting face. You misunderstand. Besides, I repeat, I did not kill them. I merely partook of their essence, and perhaps in the case of the older one, got a mite carried away in my appetites." "So that's it. You're a sloppy eater? Why didn't you drain him slowly for years, like the rest of your kind does? Probably no one would have noticed till he had 1 foot and 2 elbows in the grave." "You genuinely care to know the answer?" I was bored. Now, don't you strut about wearing the mask of a concerned mother, chiding me for playing with my food. What fun is life without play? What does it matter if I make a game of the monotony of consumptions?" Something rippled across his forehead, like a worm wriggling beneath the flesh. The non-man dismissed her scowl with a wave of the hand. "A man must eat." "You're not a man." Elena crossed her arms. "The mayor's wife wears fox fur. Doesn't make her a vixen." "What sharp wit!" The creature leaned in. Its red tie swayed between them like a lolling tongue, and its smile began to fade. "Goodness, how I do grow weary of your mockery. Best take care now. You have seen of what I'm capable when left undistracted." "I'm honestly getting tired of this myself. The children you took, where are they?" "My, how you focus upon such humdrum. I would rather talk about you some more. What you want." "The boys," Elena insisted. "Are they alive? Let them go, and then maybe we'll talk." How badly do you want them to be safe and sound, eh? Enough to take their place?" Her insides burning partially from the frustration and partially from fear, Elena slowly nodded. "Let them go. Free them, and I'll stay." The unman grinned, its eyes rolling backward. For a split second, she thought that she could see a second pair behind them, a pair that blinked sideways, made her think of a bog-dwelling bottom-feeder and serpents inside of their damp holes, waking. "Your terms are agreeable," said the creature. Half shrouded by mist, two translucent forms, smaller and shadowy but human-like, stood up. They solidified, becoming people again, and Elina recognized them from the pictures Lowing had messaged her earlier. The missing children, Tomik and Powell. The boys spun in place for a moment, heads bobbing, expressions advertising their confusion at their surroundings. She shouted at them, "Run! Run straight forward as fast as you can and don't look back. Don't stop until you're with your parents." Appearing unsure of where the command had come from, looking through her as if she weren't there, the boys took off in a run and soundlessly passed straight through her. "As you can see," said the gold-eyed, man-like creature, "I have granted your request, Boone. Now you simply must stay here with me." The illusion surrounding Elina remained as she watched the boys disappear from view in the direction of the front door of the pawn shop, a door that she could not see, trapped as she was within her dream web of a world. Well, she'd done it. She now found herself alone with the voracious predator. "How do I know that wasn't an illusion just now? As if I can trust you, that you really let them out." "You wound me," it said through a toothy smile. "But you have my word that I did as you asked. In my supreme honesty, I confess to selfish motivations. Any R'hllel talker, such as I, could see you are far more interesting than those little brats and their nebulous needs. Perhaps they'll be more flavorful once they ripen. You, however, are a much better catch." It licked its dry lips. "Now, it is your turn. Tell me more about your wishes, girl. I can make them come true, you know. Like you did for Doyen?" Doyen was lower than a Lilisker, a worm. It was her turn to smile. "And what does that make you, goblin?" "Do not goad me. There will be consequences." The color drained from its face and suit, and it looked much like a moving, centuries-old sepia-toned photograph. "Do you even know who I am, stripling? A stupid little greedy feeder who can't work up the nerve to take the princes and profits, so he sticks to shopkeepers and kids in podunk towns," she snorted. "I've seen what you are, and I'm not impressed. You just leave the real hunting to the real hunters." "Insolent." Its face grew longer and longer still, until its chin dropped below its waist. Its suit spread out behind it, tearing, wrapping around its arms and legs, which split into 2 or 3 pieces each. Then its eyeballs fell out, replaced by triangular mouths, rows of razor teeth in each. "Do you see now, child, to whom it is you speak so flippantly?" "Pfft," said Elina, standing in the shadow of the hulking beast. "Third-rate tricks. Seen better." She was halfway through her defiant reply when the multi-limbed monster with its mouth eyes pounced on her. She was pitched backward, her spine slamming against the damp earth of her imagination-twisted world in which they'd trapped each other. Pinned to the ground, she stared at the writhing, pinkish-green, veiled, scaly midsection of the demon. Then it lowered its bulky, lopsided head and opened its third and largest mouth, shattered teeth protruding from the waist of the false man shape that it had worn up until moments ago. The red tie was now actually a slobbering, fleshy red tongue sliding up the side of Elina's cheek. The creature said, "Gaze upon my glory." She choked on the stink of its durian mixed with weak old cat crap beneath. "To think," she gasped, "that I'd be put out of my misery by a 2-bit no-name bottom-of-the-barrel scavenger like you. Little mammal," it bellowed in her face, smacking its fat, veiny lips. "You will respect me, for you are in the presence of royalty. I am a prince of my people. It is a terrible honor you receive now, Raver girl, to be devoured by the great Ossiok Excalia." That name. Elina mentally cycled through a vast number of Aelf encyclopedias under which her grandfather had buried in her childhood. Was it Tinocles? The pressure of its talons on her chest and shoulders. Oranorish? the stench of its withered maw and flapping, grasping tongue. No, it was Yorian, and it meant... A wicked grin on her face, Alina said, Eragon Alith Al Tililian. Spirits of the earth and sky, by their name I call upon you, Ossiok ex Kalia, and by your name, Hubris, I bind you. There was a pause. The monster's mouth eyes chewed on their eyelid lips. Ossiok Excalia guffawed, and the streams of streaming saliva spilled over Alina's face and arms. Through its laughter it said, To think that so feeble an incantation, writ by a doomed and forgotten people, could have given you even the slightest power over me, simpleton, you dog-brained blusterer. I have had my fill of your childish games. Now I shall have my fill of you. The demon's weight crushed her body, squeezing the air out of her lungs. Ah, said Alina, weakly through her half-lidded eyes. This was just a distraction, and you've fallen right into my trap. Clutching something in her hand, she thrust her fist forward. With this talisman, A flick of one of its tentacles, and the demon snatched the thing from her grip. The object it held, her cell phone, shimmering as the screen lit up. Ossiok Excalia inspected the foreign item between his talons. This, it said, its right mouth eye nibbling gingerly at the corner of the phone. This is your holy weapon? Perhaps I should return to the void, if such is the depth to which Aelfravers have sunk. You lot can provide no more sport, I now see. It turned its mouth eyes to Alina again. I have had far and away enough of this. Prepare to be consumed by hubris, and consider it a... Ingrid, Alina announced, send my drafted message to thimbleboy@townshipmail.mag. Subject, Ossiok Excalia, hubris demon. Do not open, K thanks. The demon looked at her, then the phone, then her. And though it retained 0 human features by this point, it appeared confused. She finished her command with text body blank, send. Her phone's integrated intelligence software sounded a dainty chime. In the voice of an annoying middle-aged school principal, it said, sending message. The demon's mouth eyes swallowed. Its unique way of blinking, perhaps. What in the 77 hells was... From the phone's screen, a flash of blue light speared Ossiok Excalia, raking across its spined and thorny flesh. It roared in agony and then dug its talons into the earth, bracing itself as its face was sucked up against the phone, which now floated 10 feet in the air. Its claws tearing up at the earth and grass, the demon's face, head, and shoulders were crushed and drawn into the 5 by 6 inch. Its claws tearing up the earth and grass, the demon's face, head, and shoulders were crushed and drawn into the 5.8-inch display. The demon's distorted, garbled scream was clipped short as the rest of it was pulled into the cell phone, and then Ossiok Excalia was gone. There was no weight in Elena's chest any longer, nothing pinning her down. The drooling evil thing had vanished into thin air. She chuckled quietly to herself, coughing. The phone fell to the ground, pinged one more time. Message sent. Alina lay still for a few moments, holding her breath. Ingrid said, message delivered. Alina let out a heavy sigh. Thank you, Ingrid. The dust settled. She was no longer in the field by the road, but back in the Silver Spoon. The dark closed in on her, but that was all right. It was a familiar darkness, a non-threatening one, a darkness specifically lacking in demons. Her phone had fallen on the ground. She crouched and snatched it up. Her Nemometer, the measure of her remaining magical power, had dropped to 2%. Close call. Alone in the dark, she shook her head. She flipped on the flashlight. It immediately petered out. Low battery. Unsteady, knees shaking, she found the front door, but not before slamming her foot into the base of a tarp-covered harpsichord. Limping now, she slipped out of the pawn shop. The one element that had carried over from the fantasy world was the fog, thick as a blanket and leaking from the shop into the street. She could barely make out the people on the other side. As she walked over to them, the townsfolk gasped and muttered to one another. Sheriff Lowing, the curling edges of his frizzy mustache twitching against his doughy pink cheek, said, You made it. And? You get whatever it was? Thumbs looped through his belt, one wrinkled pant leg in front of the other. One of the deputies added, Was looking dicey there for a hot minute. A wad of cash passed from the deputy's hand to the other. Both men looked relieved and embarrassed. "Where'd the fog come from?" Lowing asked, tensing. "We need to get everyone out of here?" Elena shook some of the numbness from her brain. "That? Nah, it's an illusion. Mostly. The stuff spilling out of the pseudo-reality that was created when my potion-enhanced thoughts met the demon's, what's the word I'm looking for? Hangriness. That kind of thing can happen when a powerful elf is met head-on with magic. You're sure we're okay standing here? I mean, it's magic. There's no standard safety guidance or warning labels if that's what you're looking for. Nema surges have side effects sometimes, Sheriff." Elena rubbed her neck, feeling the bruises developing. "What about the kids? Did they come out?" Sheriff Lowing stepped forward. "They're here, shaken and dirty, but that's about average for them." Elena followed his gaze and locked eyes with Tomik and Powell, who were wrapped in blankets, crying, clinging to their parents, but safe. Shaking, Elena let out a shuddering sigh. "All's well that ends well, except for Mr. Doan. Guess that means the job's done, though. So," she had her open palm between herself and the sheriff, "the bounty." "What was it, though?" said Lowing, doing far less reaching for his wallet than Elena would have liked. "The elf? Oh, I had it pegged for a greed eater. I was wrong. Turns out we were dealing with a demon. They behave similarly, but demons are much worse," she shrugged. "Anyways, the big bad is done for, and that's all that matters. Took care of it for you. Won't be bothering you again. Now," she tapped her fingers onto her still open palm, "my payment, please." "You killed it, then. Thank Bethmertha for that." He nervously eyed the sky, watching a Sky-Eye news drone carrier rocket toward the scene of the crime. It was still a fair distance away, but at its current speed, would arrive within minutes. "They're almost here. Come on, let's see it then." "Huh?" "The trophy, Elena. The head or claw or whatever you pulled off the monster. I need a bone to wave in front of the slobbering press." He pointed a chunky finger at the gleaming carrier bristling with tiny camera drones. "Trophy? Hang on, we agreed." The sheriff's mood made an about turn, his ruddy complexion darkening on the way to purple. "Am I missing something? Were you not able to recover any part of it after you put it down? Was it a ghost or some such?" "It wasn't a ghost." Elena pressed her fingers to her forehead, a migraine oncoming. "I just told you that." "Okay, so demon. Yeah, still." The sheriff nodded toward the buildings. "Are you telling me that I have to stand in front of the eyes of the entire nation and the gods and my old mother and tell our countrymen that they'll have to, what, take my word that the situation's been resolved? There's gotta be something, some kind of proof the beast is dead." Elena cleared her throat. "Dead? Am I speaking Tenochalese or something? How are we failing to understand each other here?" Syllable by syllable, Elena explained. "As I told you before on the phone, when I took this job, I don't kill. Not the elf, not anybody." The sheriff took a reflexive backward step as if he'd been physically stricken. You. With thumb and forefinger, he rubbed his eyes for a solid few seconds. "Let the monster go? Little lady, do you have even the tiniest inkling of what it is you've done?" Elena glowered at him. "Aside from saving the hostages and all of you, you want to know all about the incredibly difficult service I just provided? Let's get technical. That was not your average greed feeder, which any bozo could have handled. It was an ancient demonic prince, and I had to put myself practically in its jaws and play to its arrogance, all so that I could trick it into revealing its name. And that's when I used my modified version of the spell Unidball, Drakehammer's irresistible command." "What? What are you even going on about? I don't need to hear. This is terrible. Gods have mercy. I can hardly even look at you right now." Elena talked over him. "Basically, I bound the demon to a cloud storage account that I made, breaking it into a billion fragments of compressed data, and using a spamming program freely available online, I sent a digimail to my friend's account. A digimail, by the way, that is the only key to unlocking the elf from its new forever home. The key that is forever out of its reach." She took a breath. "Now, will you be paying me with cash or app? I don't have a Hive Pay implant, but I'll gladly provide you my Gelder Pass info. Could also do money, please. Whatever's faster." The autopiloted camera carrier had arrived, obscuring the sun. Hundreds of circular drones peeled off it, and these zoomed in on different directions, capturing wide-angle bird's eye and 360-degree footage of the scene, the people, and the sheriff's department. Lowing turned to one of his deputies. "Zej, I need you to get these people in line. Put the kids up front with me. If we play up with this rescue, maybe there's still a chance to sidestep this fire pit. Bye, Berthmertha." Lowing turned to Elena again. "The fact that you've left a demon, Mr. Doylan's murderer, the abductor of 2 innocent children, roaming free, frankly, I'm disgusted." "It's not roaming free," she snapped. "It's trapped in a combination cloud storage and program loop that—" "Shut up! Just shut up! You've left me to deal with this unholy mess, and somehow you want me to give you 400 gelders? Yeah, 'cause I took care of your monster for you." She gestured emphatically as she spoke, as if she were chiding a dog for dragging its rump over a new carpet. "Miss Kvitch," he said, his voice gone cold, "this is just unacceptable. I took a chance on you, girl, and now you've gone and made me look like a right fool. Which I must be for having hired you in the first place." "What?" she shouted, the fog muffling the echoes of her voice. "For all I know, you didn't do anything, because you ain't got no proof for me. Maybe you think that you can pull one over on Mr. Lowing, huh? You head into that dusty old building, fabricating all sorts of tales about what's going on in there. You probably sitting inside, twiddling your thumbs, while Doyen's killer is long, long gone. You find those kids hiding under some junk and send them out. Then you hang back for a while because you need everything to look above board. At last, you step outside, babbling nonsense. Heck, for all I know, you found a fog machine in there and flipped the switch to add to the mystery of this whole situation," he growled at her. "You Aelfravers and your malarkey, honestly. Most of you are absolute worst, cheating honest folks out of their hard-earned money. I thought that we could maybe trust you, given what stock you come from, but clearly your granddaddy was the exception that proved the rule. You're nothing like him. I can see that now. He was a master of your craft. He knew how to deal with beasts like that one in there." The sheriff jerked a thumb toward the silver spoon. "He'd kill him and return with proof of the deed, put everyone's mind at ease, 'cause he knew that's what takes to keep the peace. That's my job, you know, keeping the peace. And it's why I can't abide by this betrayal of my trust. How do I know without seeing the corpse with my own 2 eyes that you actually got him? Maybe you both struck a deal in there and let him go easy, so that you could collect the reward. Are you kidding me, Lowing? I was fighting for my life. How dare you treat me like some child playing dress-up? Worse, you're accusing me of what? Entering into a contract with a demon?" She took a breath that caught in her throat. "This is my job. I'm good at it. You'd never talk to my grandfather this way. Know what I think? I think you're looking for a reason to rip me off. The fact that you're only worried about your pay tells me everything I need to know about your priorities. Demaskvich," said the sheriff, drawing himself to his full height, 5 inches shorter than Elena, "was a true man of action. Why I went and hired a no-name unlicensed pretender I'll never know. Would have been better off tackling the problem myself," he sighed. "You were one of our own, so maybe I figured that I'd give you a fighting chance. Well, look what good that's done me. That demon's probably out there, plotting its next attack, and you want me to pay you based on what, huh? Your dang word?" "The word of a Kvitch," said Elena. "I believe I speak for the town at large when I say, ain't no Kvitch here. From where I'm standing, you've put all of us at risk. We're just fortunate those kids turned up safe, and you're lucky that I don't put you under investigation, girl. Go back to school, Elena. Get yourself an education and an honest trade. You just ain't ready. The world's too big for a little lady like me." Elena glared at all of them, hate in her eyes and bile in her throat. "You're screwing me out of money that I earned. That's all this is. You're stiffing me because you know that I won't hit you back. Well, that's what you think. That's the real gamble here." She let slip an acidic laugh, hissing as it passed her lips. "You'll regret this one day. All of you. I'm gonna pretend I didn't catch those threats, and you'd be best to get out of my face, Elena. I may be letting you off now, but if, after today, I'm still sheriff, there will be a reckoning." "Thieves," she barked and turned away from all of them. The townsfolk watched her retreat like a kicked dog. No one stood up for her. She didn't need them to, but the gesture would have been appreciated. Scumbags. The thanks that she'd got for saving them all, bean milk and old cheese for dinner. Again. The sheriff called after her. One day, you'll have to decide, Elena. Do you want to be like your granddaddy and make a fair living actually helping people, or are you planning to cling to your tall tales and nonsense? You hurt yourself as much as others, acting as you do, abusing your heritage. Elena grinded her teeth, pressed her fingernails into her palms, and she didn't look back. She swatted a shiny platinum-colored camera drone out of the way. It bounced off the nearest wall and zipped over to the crowd instead. There, already several people were giving their accounts of what had happened that morning, or what they thought had happened. The deputies ushered the two moist-eyed children up to Sheriff Lowing, who smoothed his mustache with two hands and cleared his throat. The swarm of cameras circled around him like flies. Of course, Elena didn't stick around for his speech. She walked the several miles back to her grandfather's empty school. She couldn't afford the cab fare.